Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk about attending a private elite college or attending just elite colleges in general for maybe it is doing your PhD or going to graduate school or maybe getting your MBA or, becoming a physician or something along those lines. This is a topic that comes up a fair bit. If you don't know, I'm actually a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And this is a question that comes up when I'm actually been listening. I listen to the Dave Ramsey Show. If you don't know who that is, the Dave Ramsey Show is a personal finance guru, and most of his advice is absolutely sound. In fact, I actually often teach about his particular advice in my classes, right? Or sort of variants of the advice that he gives. But one of the ones that kind of drives me a little bit bananas is that he suggests that there's little returns of actually going to an elite college, and you would be better off from going to not an elite college for your educational attainment. Well, it's a little bit more trickier than that sort of suggestion. And the evidence that he often provides is that, if you take a sort of survey of all of the top managers of Fortune 500 CEOs, you're going to see many more people from public schools and, non-elite public schools that are in the top management team than people that are from private universities or elite universities, however you might sort of judge that. Now, I'm not talking about, again, with private universities, I'm not necessarily talking about the ones that are, that are low status but high pay sort of private universities, but ones that are sort of really legitimate elite universities that are very difficult to get into. And why is this the case, or why do I have this particular issue with it? Well, in the academic literature that we look at, when we look at the performance of firms or the performance of top management teams, we often actually control, or we use that as a predictor of whether they attended an elite university as a predictor of firm performance. And a fair number of studies that suggest that is actually the case, that if you go to elite university, and I put some references from recent ones as of late, but you can look at it, there's a whole theory, or there's a whole academic literature in the upper echelons and top management teams of firm performance. But I put some links and references below. You can look at those. But basically, it suggests that this academic literature suggests that if you attend a private elite school, that there is a significant positive effect on firm performance of those top managers, as well as you do command higher salaries if you go to private elite universities or just elite universities in general. And what is going on here? What is the particular issue that sort of drives me crazy? Is Dave Ramsey wrong, right? This personal finance guru, is he wrong? I don't think he's necessarily wrong, and I don't think the academic literature is wrong. And in fact, it's really sort of a symptom of looking at how these studies, or the way that things are measured, or how you might actually study these two particular outcomes, right? So you're getting good advice from both sides of the table, and I'm going to sort of suggest why that is the case. So what do you actually benefit from going to an elite private or elite university, whatever it is, right? So going to get your PhD at elite university or going to graduate school from elite university, what do you actually get? Well, there's three things, I think, maybe there's more, three things that I can think of right now that you can actually get, that the academic literature has sort of suggested you get. The first one is signaling. So this is the effect that you get from, demonstrating that you are somehow effective in the marketplace, right? So it's some sort of stamp of quality that you might get from attending that private university, and other people might be more likely to hire you because you went to that particular elite university, right? The second thing that you're going to get is social capital. So a lot of these elite universities actually have networks, right? So this is often, you might think of the old boys club that you might have heard about. It's a lot, not necessarily the old boys club anymore, but they still maintain these private elite university sort of networks, right? So if you, and it might be formal, right? So the university I went to, it was a pretty good university in Canada. They actually had a formal network. But then as well, it might be informal as well. So you see somebody from that particular school and you're like, hey, how you doing, right? So there's that kind of network effect. And that's the social capital that you might get from that. And that gives you opportunities and jobs and things like that. And a lot of times, because those people that went to elite universities, they end up going to really good positions, right? Just from historical effects, they go to good positions in industry, and then they end up recruiting from those particular schools again, and there is that effect. And the third thing that you often get is the effect of just human capital, the advantage that you get from investing in human capital. So going to an elite university, you might actually get a bump up just from the educational experience, right? So you're getting trained better and whatnot. So there's those kind of effects, and they're difficult to tease apart. Really difficult to tease apart any of those particular effects. So they're kind of, I would sort of lump those together. And so why do I actually think that, Dave Ramsey might be right and the academic literature might be right? Well, they're kind of measuring different things. So in the academic literature, where you're looking at the performance of firms and the effect of elite university, so attending elite university on the performance of firms, there is very little discussions of the return on investment from actually attending those elite universities, right? And that's actually inherently difficult to get that information. So does it actually make sense? So if you are, you're a 19-year-old or 18-year-old, does it make sense to attend that private university and pay the amount that you're going to pay on, the benefit that you're actually going to get in the long run, right? It's really expensive to attend some of those universities, and are you going to recoup that cost? And how quickly are you going to recoup that cost from attending those elite universities, right? It is very, very, it's very difficult to get that information. And now, does that affect the firm performance of top managers, right? So can you actually evaluate that? So in order to do that, you're going to have to get the costs from top management teams. You're going to have to get how much they actually spent on their education. And then you're also going to have to look at sort of the returns over time, right? So it might be really, it might not be worth it in the immediate term, but then in the long term, right? So you have to look at over time how they're recouping these costs, and then the effect on firm performance. That's an inherently difficult thing to get. There might be a study out there. This is kind of slightly outside of my academic area that I've read very thoroughly. So there might be a study out there, but in general, I don't think that that is the case. It's hard to get that information in terms of what the returns are for the individual person and as well as the firm from attending these private or from these elite universities. Now, the second thing that often, or with these two different arguments, is that the sample that Dave Ramsey is pulling from, or the study that he sort of suggests that, to look into these, they're pulling from different samples, right? So if you look at from the total population of people that attend public universities or, an elite university, you are probably going to get more people from a large public institution going and becoming a CEO or going into top management positions. And that's simply because it's a larger population. And so there's going to be more people at the ends of the distribution. So there's going to be more people that are performing very, very well, and more people that are performing very not so well than in going from those that are selected from a private elite university, right? So in general, you might get a much larger boost from attending a private university, but then you're not going to get those ones that sort of skyrocket to the top, right? Or maybe they do. Maybe there are those ones that do skyrocket from the top, but there's just statistically statistically, there's less people that are going to do that, right? It's a smaller sample that you have in general. So then you're going to get, just inherently, there is going to be more people that just blow everybody else away that come from a public university than from a private university, because we all have different motivations and things happen in our life, and that's a really valid argument that Dave Ramsey points out with this, is that you might actually attend a private university and then halfway through you decide, or an elite university, and spend all that money and then decide that you don't want to do it anymore. Or you might get that education from Harvard Business School and then you decide, I want to stay at home and watch my kids, and that's totally legitimate, and that does happen, right? So you have to often look at that and sort of weight that decision compared to just looking at all the top performers in a particular area. And you could look at my last video from my last Nerd Out Wednesday series, where I talk about that particular effect, where you're just learning from success. And the third thing that I think is really important is neither sort of on the academic side in terms of looking at firm performance, where we are looking at, attending a private elite university, does that actually have, an effect? Or an Ivy League school, for example, does that have effect on firm performance? It's inherently not causational in any sort of way. That information is really difficult to get. And to get sort of a large, if you just look at people that are in top management positions, it's inherently correlational. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we are not really getting at the true effect of what it means to actually attend an elite university compared to attending a not so elite university, right? So in order to get this effect, and this is the reason why it's so incredibly hard that you're going to have to get this effect, is going to have to duplicate yourself somehow, right? You're going to have to get two of you. One of you has to attend a elite university, and another one has to not attend an elite university. So what this does, it controls for the effect of your particular skill level, right? Your ambitions, your opportunities that you have. Maybe it's the background that you have, right? So if you come from a poorer background, or a background where it's just not in your repertoire to even think about that, which, I mean, for me, that was really the case, right? I just, growing up, I never even thought of going to university, much less going to an elite university. So it's just kind of outside of what you'd envision that you'd ever do, right? So you'd have to get two of you. One would have to go to an elite university, and the other one has to not do that, and see what happens, right? And then you might want to compare. Not only that, maybe you'd want to actually get three of you. One goes to an elite university, one goes to kind of a normal public institution, and another one doesn't actually go to university, and then see what actually happens. And that's really, really inherently difficult to control for all of those particular factors. And there are tools and techniques you can sort of look at that. One of them is, maybe doing some sort of randomized controlled trial amongst a large population. You can also do things that are sort of quasi-experimental designs, where you do, maybe it is a regression discontinuity sort of design. There's all sorts of kind of designs that you can do to sort of, maybe it's a difference in different sort of technique that you might get at. There's all these statistical techniques to try to capture that stuff, but inherently, that is probably still impossible to do, and they're still going to have limitations compared to doing sort of a design where you just duplicate yourself. And you see where you're going to go, right? And you might be able to do a twin study where you can actually get at that, where you look at identical twins and see where one goes, but you're still not controlling for the effect that those people are different people, right? And they have different skills and ambitions and things like that. So we're never ever going to be able to get at that. And then on top of it, what you're going to have to do is measure the outcomes over a very long period, because the costs actually outweigh the benefits in the short run of attending a private university or an elite university of any sort, right? It's really costly to attend those schools, and you're going to, if you gather that information at 5 years out, you're probably going to see that the attending an elite university is probably not worth your money. But then if you gather it at 25 years out and you look at the effects compounded over time, you're probably going to see, maybe you're going to see an effect, right? I don't know. And it's inherently, to get at that information, no researcher would ever track anybody that long. It would be very, very costly to do that. So you'd have to you would have to spend a lot and track it for a long time and just be plugging along in that particular research question for a very long time. And it's just not really practical to do that, right? So in general, we're probably still going to have this debate over the long run, and we're probably going to say one is better than the other. But basically, going forward, if you were thinking about doing this in any sort of way, attending a private college, or if you have that opportunity, you have to really think and consider whether the effects are there for you and whether it's actually going to benefit you in any sort of way. And you have to weigh the effect. You have to look at that you are very likely to have something happen to you, or, moderately likely to have something happen to you. Maybe you have to quit the program and it's going to be very costly for you because you don't get any benefits from that. Maybe you get some sort of benefit to human capital, but you're not going to get very little benefit, or social capital, but you're not going to get the signaling effect of getting that particular degree at the end of it, right? So you have to weigh all these benefits of attending a private elite college going forward in terms of the benefits that you're going to get, whether it's attending for a private university or not doing that. You have to sort of think about this and see whether it's actually worth it. And these are risks that you're going to have to do, and risks that you actually have to make this particular decision. So if it was me and I was faced with this particular decision, I would actually sit down and do an economic analysis on this, right? So you look at what are the benefits, you'd weight those down, you maybe do some sort of Excel spreadsheet and see what the cost is, and see whether the cost is actually worth it of attending the elite university, right? So you look at the costs and benefits and maybe do some scenario analysis, right? So if you've done an MBA, you would know how to do this, where you'd look at sort of, maybe it's at a positive or a high sort of estimate of what might happen, and a low estimate of what might happen, and sort of a moderate estimate of what might happen when you attend an elite university versus going to a private university or a public university or non-elite university for doing a terminal degree or doing your PhD, right? So you'd have to do that yourself and sort of weigh it and look at the risks and benefits. So there are risks, right? As I mentioned, there are risks of not attending or attending an elite university, because you might never get that benefit back, but or you might never get that cost back. So you have to weigh those and make that decision yourself going forward in terms of what is right for you, and whether you maybe have different alternative funding sources to allow you to continue on and attend an elite university. It's a real decision. It's a tough decision, and we all have to make those decisions going forward. And if the benefit is there, and if you could see the benefit, then by all means, it's probably worth going to an elite university to do that. But if the benefit is vastly outweighing if the costs are vastly outweighing the costs, if the costs are vastly outweighing the benefit, then yeah, it's probably not the best decision that you can do, and you can go to just a regular university without attending the elite university. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. If you like this video, if this was very helpful, give me a thumbs up, as well as give me some stories. You can write some stories below and about what you actually chose to do with attending an elite college for going to do your PhD, or maybe it's a terminal program, or becoming a physician, how you actually made that decision. It's really interesting. It's just fascinating to me. So that's it. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.